Lords of the Fallen is clearly inspired by Dark Souls, but it's important not to get bogged down by too many comparisons between the Souls games and this one. Lords of the Fallen is distinct enough to earn its own spotlight, and perhaps to earn your love as well. This is an entertaining and atmospheric adventure, and one that deserves a sequel that further fleshes out its fantasy world. World might be too generous a word, actually. You spend most of your time in corridors and moody combat arenas, not gazing onto massive landscapes. You roam from a third-person perspective, swinging an axe or sword, dodging or blocking incoming attacks, and occasionally spewing out some magic. An energy meter depletes when you roll an attack, forcing you to manage your defenses so you aren't vulnerable to damage. Different melee weapons require different approaches, but Lords of the Fallen gives each of them an authentic sense of weight. It takes time to swing that humongous greatsword you carry, and improper timing leaves you open to counterattacks. You also have spells to cast and a gauntlet that shoots out magic projectiles, among other attacks. Casting the limited spells you can choose from when leveling up, and switching between those spells, is a matter of pressing or holding a button. There's no need to switch from a dagger to a wand if you want to produce a speeding figure that runs right through your enemies for a good amount of damage. There are no bows and arrows in Lords of the Fallen, it's all swords and sorcery. The game insists on trying to tell a story, but the early hours are pretty incoherent, and anti-hero Harken doesn't have much interesting to say anyway. Instead, it's better to let the frozen walkways and imposing monastery speak for themselves. This place seeks to murder you. Consider the titles of the bosses you fight. Beast, Champion, Annihilator. They have one purpose: to kill. To call Lords of the Fallen a poor man's Dark Souls sells it too short. For one, Lords of the Fallen strikes a different kind of tone. It's moody and oppressive, but rarely terrifying. It is a power fantasy, not a death simulator, and the chunky, ornate art style reflects the difference. Lords of the Fallen has a few challenges, but it's rare for you to feel frail or afraid. The game simply isn't hard enough to make your blood boil. That's at least true in the main world. The visits you make to a shadowy and sinister otherworld are a little more frightening. Traversing this dark dimension is like exploring a foggy desert at midnight. You can barely see further than the tip of your blade. Your steps into the beyond first lead you to simple knights and ghouls, which require only that you put the clumsy targeting system to good use. Soon, however, you could encounter a rolling fire demon that puts up a bit more fight. You reach this realm by entering portals that only unlock when you've killed some unknown beast, hoping to find some special treasure like a new hammer or a rune for upgrading your equipment. You die, but not frequently enough for Lords of the Fallen to get grindy or frustrating. When you perish, you leave behind your ghost and revive at whichever ruby crystal you last saved at. Your ghost contains all the experience you've accumulated since the prior death, but it doesn't remain forever, so it's in your best interests to go retrieve it, at least early on. Every fallen enemy will have respawned after your death, but you'll at least be armed with the knowledge of what lies ahead of you. Death is not a huge setback, though. Experience can be regained easily, and in the last several hours, you earn too little experience from killing enemies to mind the loss. The bosses may have ominous titles, but if you have Souls experience, you can off most of them on the first attempt. The challenge ramps up nicely during the lead up to the final showdown, however, and a few bosses, particularly the final one, demand a bit of extra thinking. The greatest challenge Lords of the Fallen provides isn't a welcome one. It's easy to lose yourself in the crypts and corridors, unsure of where the game means for you to go. Every region cleverly connects with others, but some areas are so same-ish, and some entrances so subtle, that the game can become aimless. The annoyances are few, however. You could call Lords of the Fallen a Souls game for the meek. At 20 hours the first time through, it's not as long as the games that inspired it, nor is it as special, as hard, or as mysterious. But Lords of the Fallen has a consistency of tone, a powerful spirit, weighty combat, and a beautiful world to explore. and it's one of the biggest pleasant surprises of 2014.